In 1937, Amelia Earhart isn't just famous. She's become a legend in her own lifetime. She had crossed the Atlantic solo alone. She's broken high altitude records. She's written bestseller books and toured the globe. But her ultimate goal, to become the first woman to fly around the entire world following the equator. Which those of you who don't know the equator, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure the equator is the line that goes through the Earth. So that's perfectly around the globe. Just like that, like you see in your history teacher's room. That line where the globe connects, she's going around like that. Well, on June 1st, 1930. Well, ah, that was really weird. My guitars all decided that, like, when I said something at a certain pitch, they all started ringing, and it was weird in my ear. He's so awesome. Thank you. All right, let's continue the stories. If you guys maybe want your friends to hear this story, send them a share. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. On June 1st, 1937, Amelia Earhart departs from Miami in a Lockheed Electra 10E with Mr. Fred Noonan, a world-renowned navigator. And they board plane. Uh-oh, I'm sorry. The flight goes perfectly normal. Nothing wrong. A great time to break this record. The flight is smooth as can be. At first, they go through Brazil to Africa, India, Australia, Papua New Guinea. By July 2nd, they've already covered 22,000 miles of this journey, with only 7,000 more miles to go. They don't need that entire night now. They can get there quick. Their next stop is a remote island. There's a remote 2.5-mile long strip of land, or is an island. I'm so sorry. I'm messing up. Again, it's my first time. I'm so sorry. Actually, fun fact, summer vibes. Never mind, you got it. All right, don't spoil the story, please. Let's keep it cool, guys. We're losing a lot of viewers, and I don't know if it's because I'm storytelling or maybe people just don't want to hear this. I don't know, but I'm going to still try my best to give you guys a cool story. Well, they've already covered 22,000 miles with just 7,000 to go. Their next stop was a remote island with a 2.5-mile long strip of land called, which has one of the hardest airports. But Earhart isn't worried. She's indeed really confident, and she's prepared. Her voice that's been recorded on the radio is calm, normal, nothing out of the ordinary. As she says, "We're on the line, 157, 337. We're running from north and south." Little do we know, those would be the last words we'd hear from Miss Earhart on her trip. There was silence. As panic begins to ripple through the United States government, within 24 hours, President Roosevelt authorizes the largest naval air search ever recorded in history. The USS Lexington, the USS Colorado, and dozens of destroyers and planes begin sweeping over 250,000 square miles of open ocean for weeks. They fly grid patterns. They drop smoke bombs to test visibility. They scan the coral reefs and the atolls. And after so long of searching, they find nothing. No sign of Miss Earhart and their plane at all. It's as if they vanished, never to be seen again. There was no wreckages, no oil from the plane crashing, zero signals, there's no parachutes that have been used visibly, just nothing. Amelia and Fred seem to have vanished into thin air. After 17 days, the Navy has called off the search, no longer looking for them, to conclude that Amelia Earhart had ran out of fuel and couldn't locate Howland, and she had crashed in the Pacific Ocean in 1939. She's been declared legally dead, and the case has been closed. But that was until, as the official story had settled in, rumors began to spread throughout the U.S. of strange signals, scattered bones, and a forgotten island far from the flight path. Well, fast forward to 1940, a British colonial officer, Gerald Gallagher, had been working on Nikumaroro, then called Gardner Island. On Gardner Island. 350 miles south of Howland, he finds a partial human skeleton. At first, it could be anybody. It could be anything. Someone might have just died nearby. Then a woman's shoe. And a box for a sextant used for navigation. There were bits of aluminum and glass. At this point, it's time to report it. But then, as he's walking around a bit, looking to see what might have caused this incident of human life that's gone, he sees a campfire site with birds and turtle bones very close by, clearly eaten by somebody. And then he begins to report the discovery, but the bones are sent to Fiji and were never seen again. A doctor at that time had said they belonged to a man. The theory is dismissed. Everyone believing that they had found Miss Amelia Earhart was immediately turned away after being told that those bones that were found was by a man. Nobody had any more rumors. They're consistent, but decades later, those bones were taken to a lab and reanalyzed using computer modeling. Those bones were consistent with a white American woman with a similar height to Amelia Earhart's height. Now, this is not confirmed yet, but people begin to theorize again that this could be her. They could have found her. And just as it gets to chilling, between July 2nd and July 6th, at least 57 amateur radio operators across the Pacific and the U.S. had reported receiving faint distress signals through their radios that are just in their living room, sitting down inside of their chair reading the newspaper when their radio connects to a new signal, which some people were claiming to even heard a woman's voice saying, "We're on a reef, we can't stay here long." One message reportedly had included, "Water's high, motors sinking, help us quickly." These signals were dismissed as a hoax to cancel out any theories. But modern researchers say 20 of them were highly credible and only could have come from a powered transmitter on land, which means Amelia did survive her plane crash, at least only for a few days. Fast forwarding to 1937, a British surveyor named Eric Bevington had snapped a photo of the island's reef. Nothing unusual. Or so he had thought. But in 2010, a forensic analyst enhanced his photo that he had taken of the reef and there appears to be something sticking out of the water, jagged and metallic. It looks exactly like the landing gear strut of a Lockheed Electra, in the exact spot where survivors would have landed and set up their camp. In 2017, the satellite photos reveal what looks like a long object submerged in the reef, roughly the same length as the Electra in roughly the same reef zone. Coming up back into 2023, a U.S. Navy sonar team had reported a strong metal return from that same location now, called the Taraya object. But the island's terrain and tides were really brutal. Decades of storms had hit the land, earthquakes, sea levels rising have likely buried or broken apart the wreck. So it's not, you might not find anything. Still, the evidence, though, keeps on piling in this story. Skeletons of the birds and turtles that were cut and looked like a castaway would cut into these animals to eat them, to stay alive. The women's cosmetics, a zipper of a 1930s American design, a compact mirror, and most chilling thing that they discovered was small fragments of a glass bottle from Dr. Barry's freckle cream, a skin product that Amelia Earhart was known to use a lot. In 2025, a joint team from Purdue University, Amelia's alma mater, and Ally are returning to Nikumaroro. This time they're using underwater ROVs, which stands for remotely operated vehicles. They're using ground penetrating radar signals, DNA samplings from the site, and full-scale aerial drone mapping. They're scanning the island. The goal is to find the Taraya object, locate possible human remains, if any, and once and for all prove Amelia Earhart didn't crash and sink. She crash-landed and survived. Let's rewind a little bit here, okay? To Nikumaroro, the desolate coral atoll many believed was Miss Earhart's final resting place. It's about 350 miles southeast of Howland Island, as we remember, in the middle of the vast Pacific. The island is uninhabited, ringed with sharp coral reefs that would cut your feet up pretty bad if you were to walk there. Baking under all the restless sun, but what it lacks, there's no human civilization there. It instead is inhabited to a very cool species of crab known as the coconut crab. And the locals that live around the island call them robber crabs, and for a good reason. They are the largest land-dwelling arthropods on Earth. That is crazy. These giant crabs can grow over 3 feet across and weigh up to 9 pounds. They climb trees, and their claws are so powerful, they can crack coconuts with just their grip. Hence their name. And they can rip apart small animals, and they can shatter bone. Nikumaroro is infested with these crabs. They are everywhere. Every turn you take, they're there. Well, between July 2nd and July 6th, 1937, amateur radio operators all over the Pacific reported hearing those distress signals from Amelia's plane. In the messages that she reportedly had said, "We're on the reef, send help quickly, we can't stay here long." Back to what she said earlier. If those signals had been real, and experts believe at least 20 of those signals were believed to be true and confirmed, that Earhart may have survived the crash. She landed on Nikumaroro's reef and was stranded there for days, maybe even weeks, with no communication other than those distress signals that she was sending out, hoping for someone, anybody, to come and save her. Which leads into the most terrifying part. One of the biggest theories that researchers believe may have happened after her crash. After landing safely on the reef, Earhart and Fred Noonan would have looked for water, food, shade, anything they can use to build a shelter, to navigate, to look through this island, to keep them alive. But the island had no fresh water. They were in a salty ocean. You can't drink that. And the heat was just badgering. It was relentless. Couldn't stay away from it. It was hard to beat. You needed water. Guys, is everything okay? What's going on? I want to tell this. Well, what the researchers had believed had happened next, after landing safely on the reef, Earhart and Fred Noonan had looked for all the things that they gathered, what I just said, which is why I don't need to rewind. But after a long while, they had likely grown so weak and dehydrated, eventually having to succumb to the exhaustion and or injury caused from their landing. And when they had passed out or died, either one of those options, well, this island, from what we remember, is home to tons of these coconut crabs. Breaking bones, being able to crack coconuts, break apart small rodents, big rodents. And coconuts, crabs, being known as scavengers, they're drawn to the smell of flesh. And because they can climb trees to snatch birds, in tests conducted from researchers, they were shown to completely strip a pig carcass in under 2 weeks. That means under 2 weeks, a pig stripped clean to the bone, as if the bone was made in a factory rather than from a living being. There was no meat, no sign that these have ever contained an animal. It's as if you're finding dinosaur bones that are perfectly white and clean. It is insane to look at. Just imagining that picture in your mind. It's like a cartoon cleaning a bone dry. Under 2 weeks. That is insane. And because pigs are very similar to humans, they wouldn't be very different in the time being. Forwarding into 2007, the TIGHAR team, the International Group, or the TIGHAR team, which stands for the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, had conducted a now famous experiment. They placed a pig carcass about the size of a human on the island that they had allegedly crashed on. Within minutes, coconut crabs had swarmed it. Within 10 days, the pig was gone. Flesh, organs, everything was just stripped clean. The bones were scattered into the underbrush, dragged into hundreds of small burrows across the island. And overall, this experiment had given us a really chilling explanation, which appears to be why we've never found Amelia Earhart's body. She was stripped alive by the coconut crabs, which is not confirmed, but it is very highly believed in. Going back a little bit into 1940, British authorities had found partial human remains from before that we had heard about. Just 13 bones. A skull, a femur, and a few ribs. Oddly, the rest of the skeleton was missing. Nowhere to be seen on the island. And that's consistent with exactly what those coconut crabs had done with the pigs. which they hadn't done that experiment yet, but we realize that now, that they go hand in hand. And even more disturbing, nearby, they'd found a woman's shoe and the remnants of what had been a possible campsite. Signs that someone was definitely there, alone at least, surviving for an amount of time. And then nothing was heard after that.